Kansas City is practically in the exact center of the nation, making it a popular destination for visitors and transplants coming from both the west and east coasts. There are solid reasons to move here as well, whether it be the professional sports franchises, the nightlife, or some of the best food and barbecue the nation can offer. But before you buy that plane ticket or rent that U-Haul, we need to show you a couple of reasons why you wouldn't want to move to Kansas City. Number 10, expensive water bills. I would figure that we would start this thing off with a splash. Get it? Okay, well, anyways, hear me out. The national average for a monthly water bill is right around $40 to $50, which is pretty reasonable. The problem with Kansas City is that you're going to be paying about 3 times that amount per month, and the price just keeps going up. Now, that money is actually supposed to be going somewhere useful and not just disappearing into the bureaucratic abyss. Kansas City has some of the worst sewage and drainage systems in the US, and the federal government has actually agreed to use the money that people are paying for water towards a $5 billion effort in order to improve those aspects of the city's infrastructure. So, while you might be footing the bill, I guess you can feel good that it's going somewhere important. Number 9, it's isolated. Like I said in the intro, Kansas City is practically in the center of the country. Unfortunately, that doesn't put it right in the middle of everything. Quite the contrary. The nearest beach is 1,000 miles away, and the only real outdoor activity that you can find nearby is maybe some fishing. Now, fishing can be a great time, so don't get me wrong, but when that's basically the main event in a city that really has a lot of appeal otherwise, it's enough to prevent someone from considering a move. Maybe you'll head on over to another city to find something to do. Well, you could definitely do that, but you're going to be driving for over 3 hours each way in order to accomplish that, which will take quite a toll on your vehicle. Number 8, there's only one airport. If I told you that Newark and LaGuardia airports were the top 2 worst airports in the country, you'd definitely believe me. If I told you that Kansas City International Airport was number 3, you would ask me if that airport even exists. Not only is the airport crowded, but it's also located in the middle of nowhere, completely decentralized from the rest of the city, about 20 miles north. If you love long lines, no parking, and a lack of seats in the terminal, you're going to be salivating. But if you're like the rest of normal society, you'll absolutely hate it here. It's no bargain either, and due to its small size and location, you're going to be paying a pretty penny to fly in or out. One can only hope there's a renovation in the future. Number 9, the city's spread too far out. Kansas City is a pretty good sized city. You might be saying to yourself, well, this place has a lot to offer, so I'll just find my way around on foot. Well, sure, if you like walking a good deal, and hey, maybe that is your thing. While there isn't a whole lot of traffic due to the way the city's been built, you may not want to put all those miles on your vehicle. While there are public transportation options, the selection is quite underwhelming when looking across the country at similar-sized cities. Number 6, high taxes. No one should be surprised that a large city as popular as this one has high taxes. But you might be surprised to hear that Kansas City has its own earnings tax that citizens are forced to pay, which comes out to 1% of their earnings. While Missouri will give you the gracious gift of reduced sales tax, Kansas City charges full sales tax at roughly 9%, with a slight variance depending on if you're on the Kansas or Missouri side. There's a real lame yet intense rivalry. So, a Missouri-Kansas rivalry sounds pretty stupid, and it is. For those who live in Kansas City, you'll find some intense pride in whichever state side that you live in. Pride in your state is not a bad thing, of course, but when you consider that there's really nothing to fight about, it's pretty sad, honestly. Dating back all the way to the pre-Civil War era, when slave owners in Missouri and anti-slave abolitionists regularly quarreled over the issue of slavery on the Kansas Territory border, there is still bad blood between the two sides of the city. Pro tip, don't even start an argument over which side has the better barbecue. Number 4, Segregation. Yep, you heard that right. Kansas City still has a bit of a segregation problem. If you were to take a map and look at the different demographics of which race lives where within the city, you're going to see that with clarity that most blacks and whites live separately in the city, with whites in the suburbs and blacks in more urban areas. A lot of the failure to desegregate the city falls historically on the Kansas City School Board, which dragged its feet in desegregating schools. While Kansas City is no longer the most segregated city in the country, it still ranks very high in many metrics. Number 3, the weather's the worst. There is a reason this place is referred to as the armpit of the Missouri River. With a virtually non-existent spring and fall, summers can be brutally humid and, dare I say, moist, with the winter tending to provide a dearth of options in regards to things to do around the city, and the weather, well, that can be a bit unpredictable in the colder months. While generally a drier time of the year, the winters can yield significant amounts of snow and precipitation. While Tornado Alley has ended up shifting in the last few years, you still have a risk of dealing with 1 or 2 throughout the year, as well as a more than significant amount of hail. Number 2, bad for singles. There really isn't a dating scene in Kansas City, which is unfortunate because with all things being considered, it really isn't a pretty happening place. If you are a 20-something-year-old living here, you're more than likely going to experience some difficulty in meeting anyone, as a lot of the locals tend to stick together and have some difficulty letting transplants into the fold. This city is definitely a high school sweetheart type metropolis, where those who have lived there for their entire lives are the ones that you tend to settle down with. The overall sprawl and size of the city can make it difficult to connect as well. Lastly, number 1, high crime rate. Maybe a bit surprisingly, Missouri is the most violent state per capita in the country. For nearly 30 years, Kansas City has been ranked in or near the top 5 most dangerous cities in the country. When looking at more specific metrics, the violent crime rate is nearly 4 times the national average, and the murder rate is a staggering 6 times the national average. A lot of this does stem from a poverty rate that's higher than half the country and due to the high instances of drug use in and around the city. So there you have it. Those are the top 10 reasons not to move to Kansas City.